Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Growing Up with Godzilla. My name is Donny Winter, and this is my show where I have conversations with Godzilla fans about the character, the franchise, how they've grown with it. And I've learned so much, have had very wholesome conversations. And all in all, it's just been something fun for me to nerd out over. So tonight, I am particularly excited to have a dear friend of mine joining me. We've collaborated before, my dear friend Adrian Settle, who has the YouTube channels Godzilla Train 1090 and Monsters with Attitude. Welcome, Adrian. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Donny. How you doing? What's up,
I,
Kaiju family?
I'm doing great as well. It's always good to see you. I always have a good conversation with you whenever we get together and have a conversation. And I don't think we've met at G Fest yet, have we?
No, I have not made it to G Fest yet,
You've
and that's
not okay,
why.
you've not made it to G Fest yet. Well, I'm hoping that one of these days we get to meet each other in person because I have no doubt that we will continue to have phenomenal conversations even in person.
Yes,
So,
I'm planning on trying to make it to G Fest next year, hopefully.
same. Like I'm either going to go to G Fest or the All Monsters Attack Con, which I heard is going to be at the old G Fest hotel,
Yes,
which,
that's what I heard
I
too.
just yeah, so that's pretty cool. Adrian, do you happen to be a Godzilla fan? What? I'm kidding. That's why you're here, right? So I want to learn more about your experiences as a Godzilla fan. So when did it all begin for you? How were you introduced to Godzilla?
If I had to put an actual year on it, it had to be around either 1993, 1994, or 1996. Within those 3 years, when I became a Godzilla fan, because I actually still have them. I have the old Treadmasters Godzilla, the
Yes.
12-inch Warren one. Because Lord knows us '90s kids, if you're a Godzilla fan, don't have a Treadmasters, what are you doing with your life
Oh, I know. They
today?
were the highlight of the 90s for us
they
Godzilla kids,
they
basically.
really were. It was amazing. That was a fun time to become a Godzilla fan back in the '90s. But I don't think I know I first saw the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla. That's the first thing, and the most vivid memory in my mind is the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla, and watching that on Cartoon Network, probably about 3 or 4 in the afternoon, on Cartoon Network, more than likely.
I do remember that
And
too.
after that, one day I just accidentally saw Godzilla versus Megalon, and from there I've been hooked since then.
Yes, I love that. You know, it's interesting that the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla series was your first because of all the people I've spoken with, they've never mentioned that one. And I remember for me, like obviously my first exposure to Godzilla was the original Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, but I do fondly remember watching the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla series. Like it was so fun. I remember like we would watch it like back to back with like Scooby Doo or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, or something. But that's so cool.
And Johnny Quest, Jetsons, all that stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah, like all the good stuff. Oh, I'm feeling the nostalgia now. Ooh. Ooh. So okay, so at some point though, you then got a hold of the Trendmasters Godzilla figures. So when did that happen? Like, or was that later on?
I feel like I got the Tremendous Godzilla before I even saw the Hanna Barbera Godzilla. I think I had that Godzilla first because, of course, just like the rest of us, I grew up as a huge dinosaur fan as a kid, and I think I saw it in this. And I can't remember when or where I got it. I just remember I had it because I had some old home videos of me having it. I was like, okay, so I had to have this because my sister was a baby still in that home video. So I was like, okay, so I had to have it between 4 or 5. Don't know when, don't know where. I just remember I had it, and then between those years, I finally saw the Hanna Barbera Godzilla, and I was like, I really like this show, but this is not the real Godzilla. And then I think probably on AMC or Sci-Fi, one of those networks, Godzilla versus Megalon came on. I was like, ooh, so this looks like the real Godzilla. This
Oh
looks
my
like my
goodness.
Godzilla.
So Godzilla versus Megalon really cemented being a Godzilla fan for you. Like
At
what
that
about
point, I
that
was
film?
mhm.
What about that film really like drew you in specifically?
This how fun the film is. I mean, and then even now, it's not one of my favorite films because I mean, it does have its problems, just like every other Godzilla movie. But Godzilla vs. Megalon is a fun film, especially when Godzilla, Megalon, Jet Jaguar, and Gigan get together and fight. That's once I saw that fight scene, I was sold after that.
Oh my gosh, right? Okay, so funny story. I watched Godzilla versus Megalon the other day for the first time in probably like 7 years. It's been a very, very long time since I've watched it because it's not one of my favorite movies. Aside from Godzilla versus Hedorah or Terror of Mechagodzilla, I don't really watch the 70s films that often, but not that I don't enjoy them. Don't destroy me, everyone. I watched Godzilla versus Megalon and I was blown away by the battle at the end. But the scene that really I thought was really funny that I forgot about, the scene where the Seatopian dude infiltrates their home, like the main character's home, and the kids there. And this dude, the Seatopian, just like kicks the child and just like flames the child. And I'm like, what in the hell is going on? Like, I completely forgot about this scene. Like, this child is being thrown. Oh my god. And then of course, like, I was just like, this child's been through a lot. Like, if I were this child going through this, I'd be like, no.
Oh, and Lord knows I wouldn't fly these days. Lord.
Right? I'm just like, wow. And when the actor who plays the child character was at G-Fest, I should have asked him, like, how did it feel to be just flung around and kicked by the other actors in this film?
You really got abused in that film.
Right. I mean, there's so many funny moments, and I just like that one just really stood out to me because I was just like, "Woo, 2022 standards, this would be child abuse." What's going on? Your first exposure to Godzilla was through the Hanna-Barbera series, Godzilla vs. Megalon, and the Trendmasters figures. As you grew older, what areas of the Godzilla fandom did you start gravitating to? Like how did that being a Godzilla fan grow for you?
Most of us growing up, there wasn't, before the internet was around, what other Godzilla fans? I thought it was me and my brother, and we was just gonna be ride or die Godzilla fans to the end of time together. And then lovely Facebook came up, and I think the first exposure I got to it was what group was it? I think the Godzilla group with like 80,000 members or something. I think that was the first group I found. I was like, oh, there's more Godzilla fans out here.
Oh wow, yeah.
And
so
then
your first group was the Facebook group then?
Mm-hmm, yeah, I didn't know about the Yahoo groups or anything like that. It wasn't until Facebook, and Facebook 2015, I think, is when I finally found that group.
Oh wow. Okay. So you're newer to the online Godzilla fandom, because I remember like the message boards in like the early 2000s and stuff those were a riot, let's just say. Anyway, keep going. Sorry.
I've definitely heard stories about the message boards.
They were interesting places, let's just say. So okay, so then you were drawn into this Facebook group. Then where did it go from there?
From there, I found the Express Collectors group after that, and then after that, and I've been stuck in there since 2017. And I'm not 2017, 2018, and I've just been stuck ever since.
But this is a good kind of stuck we're talking about, right?
Not for my wallet, but for me personally, yes.
That's totally fair. That's totally fair. So, panning out, like if we think of like like obviously now that you've grown as a Godzilla fan and you've had more exposure to the fandom, you've had a chance to probably watch most of the films. Which films would you say are your favorites and why? What ones stand out to you?
Well, of course, the original Gojira, because the storyline behind that is magnificent. The side story with Emiko being a little floozy, as Leslie would say, and Dr. Serizawa.
I mean, Dr. Serizawa, in my opinion, was pretty attractive. So if I were her, I would have been floozy too. So just saying.
There's so much emotions with the original Gojira that's not with all the other films. Like I that's why I usually put that by itself, because nothing else touches it as far as emotions and things like that goes, and the way the movie makes you feel and really think about everything that happened and why they made the movie. Especially getting older in this fandom, finding the true meaning of Godzilla, which is he was a symbol for the nuclear testing and the effects of it. So that will always stand alone. And even though I watch the movie maybe once or twice a year. I mean, I do love the movie, but it's just like Godzilla versus Destroyer, which we'll talk about that another day. I don't feel like crying today. Just like that, it's just something I can't watch all the time, but I do love the film as a whole. But as my favorite, I'll have to say the Return of Godzilla, or Godzilla 1985, because that one, to me, that Godzilla movie is the closest thing that we have to the original. That's not the original. Of course, Godzilla versus Biollante, because I mean, it's a awesome film. Godzilla's a absolute monster in that film. Biolante's a majestic kaiju. Even after she transforms, she's still somehow
like majestic yet terrifying at the same time, which is an amazing combination.
It really is. It's crazy that fan actually thought that up. It's ridiculous.
Right.
Of course, Mothra versus Godzilla, because that movie is absolutely perfect. I love that movie so
You
much.
won't get any gripe out of me on that one. Mothra's in it, of course. It's perfect.
and the way they did Mothra in that movie was phenomenal as well. Even though she did suffer a pretty sad death, it wasn't the worst one in Mothra's universe, which you know that, Donny.
Well, the trauma.
Yeah, that's something else we will talk about one day.
Oh my gosh, I think like Daniel and I talked about that in our episode, one of our episodes, where we just talked about like Mothra's death and the Mothra 96 film, and I was just like,
that death.
You know, like I thought it was like interesting the point that you made about Gojira 1954, and I was just thinking about the fact that when I was a kid, I really didn't watch that movie a lot, because I think when many of us are kids, we just kind of think about black and white films and we're just like, oh, like, ooh, you know. But now that I've gotten older, I've learned to watch that film and recognize its value beyond just like the, you know, colorscape of the actual film, right? And I think a lot of it was that also when I was a kid, I couldn't really understand like just how sophisticated that film is, not only with regard to its plot and characters, but with like the metaphors and the messages that, you know, come forth from it. So, and I wonder if it's something universal with other Godzilla fans too, or if I'm just like the odd duck where like I didn't like that film when I was a kid, but now it's like such an amazing film that's like a centerpiece. I mean, it began everything, right? How were you that way too, or did you like it right off the bat?
I mean, I liked it off the bat, but I didn't have nearly as much appreciation for it as I did now. And I, honestly, even though this is gonna be blasphemous too, but I kind of blame King of the Monsters on because it doesn't give that same grit feeling that the original Godzilla does. Yeah, King of the Monsters is still a great film. I love Raymond Burr in it, but it doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel the same to me.
Right. Well, I think that's an excellent point. I think that the American adaptation just kind of takes out the gravity of the film, like the gravity of like those nuclear specter messages that, you know, come through. Yeah, I remember I didn't watch the original version of the film until I was probably in my early 20s, which
same here.
And I remember watching it and just being like blown away by like, wow, there was so much taken out. And don't get me wrong, like much like you, I did enjoy Raymond Burr's contribution as well, but like I felt like the motivations of the characters were gutted. That the gravity of this destructive creature was just kind of reduced a bit in the Americanized version. So yeah. So you finished with Mothra versus Godzilla. Are there any other ones that really stand out to you?
Well, of course, Terra Mega Godzilla.
Yeah.
That movie's just pure fun, and I actually just watched that last night because of my show coming up this weekend. Well, I guess as we're recording, but um, yeah, Terra Mega Godzilla, because I mean the story behind that, behind Katsura and her dad, that whole story is pretty depressing, but the monster action of it and watching Godzilla triumph over Titanosaurus and Mega Godzilla, this always does it for me. I absolutely love it. And I saw that before I saw Godzilla versus Mega Godzilla. So it really threw me for a loop. Well, I was like, oh, wow, Godzilla took out both of them and Mega Godzilla was turning them up like that in the first movie.
Oh, I know, right? Like that first movie, he's like squirting blood and everything. Like I remember watching that for the first time and I was like mesmerized but traumatized at the same time.
Yes.
I was just like, this is cool, but I am terrified. Like between that scene and like Mechagodzilla in disguise, like breaking Anguirus's jaw, like I was just like,
what am I watching?
I was like, in the film before this, children are getting kicked, and then now in this one, jaws are getting broken. Like who's making these decisions?
Mega Godzilla was super graphic. Like I probably shouldn't have been watching that at my age, but whatever. Did my parents?
Yeah, I need to watch that. It's been a long time since I've watched that film. I need to get my poop in a group and watch it. So are there any particular kaiju or human characters that you're drawn to? Like, what ones like really stand out to you? You mentioned Katsura, like that's one of them. You mentioned Serizawa. Are there any other ones that like really resonate with you?
Well, I mean, it might be a little bit of a cop out, but of course, Miki Sagusa. I love Miki Sagusa.
Oh, that's not a cop out. I could talk 5 episodes about Miki Sagusa.
Asagi from the Gamera trilogy, of course.
Ah, yes. I saw a bunch of people met her at All Monsters.
I know she's so beautiful. I was jealous. I was like, oh my god.
I know.
And I don't get jealous. I was like, oh my god, she's here.
She's an icon. Like, oh my goodness. I'm so envious of those people. How about kaiju?
Well, I mean, obviously, besides Godzilla, as much as she gets bashed on, I feel like Martha doesn't get enough love, which that sounds crazy to hear, but a lot of people really hate Martha. I don't understand why. Martha's a lovely, majestic kaiju.
I will fight. Martha. I will fight with those people. You know me. Like I will go down with the ship for Mothra. And I do agree with you. I think that in America, I feel like Mothra isn't as appreciated as she is in, say, like Japan, right? Because in Japan, like Mothra is almost as popular as Godzilla, if not more, at times. But like I feel like she's so deeply rooted in Japanese mysticism and South Pacific mysticism that like a lot of the metaphors behind that character gets lost on Americans because we don't really understand or always resonate with that mysticism, right? At least until we learn about it. So
yeah,
you got me going on a tangent. Oh my goodness. But really though, I do think that for me, like obviously I could write a book about why Mothra appeals to me. However, I will say that one big reason she appeals to me is because she is such a contrast to the other kaiju, right? Like every other kaiju we see is either some sort of saurian beast, space monster, or insect, or mechanical creature, right? Like she's the one of the only benevolent, fuzzy, cute creatures that we see who is actually a kaiju. So yeah. Any other ones?
Well, of course, the Guardian of the Universe, Gamera. You can't love Gamera.
Oh, right.
And I know for a while I was on the train that I also didn't appreciate the Showa films. I actually recently went back this year and started rewatching some of them, and Yeah, I forgot. I didn't know Gamma had it like that. So I'm definitely getting a way more appreciation for Gamma nowadays as well. Even though he was already
Right.
my second favorite kaiju, it's just adding more to the lore to me watching some of the older Showa films.
Oh yeah.
And then, of course, I can talk about the Heisei films for days.
Oh yeah.
I'm
I
still waiting to
think
do that show.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Sign me up for that. I think that most kaiju fans would agree that the Heisei Gamera trilogy they've turned into cult classics because they're such phenomenal kaiju films, right? And interesting that you mentioned the Showa Gamera series because for the first time ever, I went back and I watched all of them this summer. Like that was like my summer task to do is watch the Showa Gamera trilogy or not trilogy series. And at first I was like super judgy. Like I was just like, what in the heck? Like, why is this giant sword head monster slicing and dicing thing? Like what's going on? But then like I got through that film and I watched the subsequent films and I was just like, actually, this is pretty good, you know? And I really think that the later films in the Showa Gamera series really added to his personality a lot. But I will say, hands down, I still think the Heisei Gamera trilogy absolutely dwarfs the Showa Gamera trilogy in every
Oh
way.
yeah, of course, as a whole, most definitely.
Oh yeah, for
But
sure.
like got Gamma versus Belwugon, Gamma versus Gauss. Both of those are incredible films as well.
Yeah, yeah. Gamera versus Gauss was surprisingly good. Like I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Um, Though I think the ones that spontaneously took place in space just kind of threw me for a loop, maybe. Mind
Yeah,
you,
those are still
I
weird.
love space stuff. I love
Yeah.
space stuff. But there was a film. I think it was I can't remember the name of
Veras, I think, was in space.
that one. Well, that one was, but then what's the sword monster's name?
Um, I'm drawing a blank.
Is it Gidon or something like that?
Not Guron. I'm drawing a blank. I don't
I'm just
remember.
gonna say Swordhead. Swordhead.
Someone will
Um
correct us.
in that film, when I watched it, if memory serves me correctly, children hijacked a flying saucer
Yep, I remember that.
and
Yeah.
flew it into space in the span of like 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, like, what? But ultimately, the battles were really good. Like, I enjoyed the
Mm-hmm.
battles of that film. It was just like the story part of it. I was just like, I, I don't know what's happening. Maybe I don't have good enough imagination. I don't know. That's possible.
And
All right.
another gamer film that was weird too that I had to watch because I was helping Jay Key with something was Gamma versus Jiger. That was a weird film. That
Oh
was
my
a
God, I
weird
forgot
film.
about that one. Isn't that the one where they like find the statue and they like move the
Mm-hmm.
statue thing? And you're just
Yep.
like, why are you moving a statue from a South Pacific island? Like, that spells bad news. And then people start
After
getting
it said
sick.
a curse was there too, like really, you're still gonna move, whatever. Okay, go ahead and
Right.
move it. Let's watch what happens.
P.S. everyone. I'm like spoiling everything. I apologize if I'm spoiling any of the show
We
again.
both are. We both are.
I'm so sorry. I needed to get that off my chest and be like, what is happening in some of these films? Um, but I do love them. I don't want anybody to be like, Donny, why are you being a hater? I do love these Showa Gamera films. All right, Adrian, this is a big question.
Okay.
So obviously, you have been growing and developing as a Godzilla fan since the 90s. How would you say that the character and franchise have shaped you into the person you are today?
I guess from the short era Godzilla movies, I guess those kind of taught me to, I guess in a sense, never give up. Honestly, especially the '70 films when Godzilla was just getting his butt beat the entire all those films besides Megalon, and somehow Godzilla still ended up being triumphant at the end of the day. The Heisei films, hmm, Heisei films are a little bit tough because even though I grew up with the show, the Heisei films, I got introduced to the Heisei films at a very interesting age of my life, around the preteen teenage years, like what my son's in now. So when I watched the Heisei Godzilla films, those really shaped me in a weird, really good way. That there's a reason for everything that everybody does. Everyone's not evil at first glance.
Ooh, I like that. That's a good moral. Yeah. Um, there's always more than what we see for sure. And yeah, like and I think that that's so relatable because and that's one of my favorite questions to ask everyone because in my opinion, I don't really think as Godzilla fans we really ask serious I don't think we ask serious questions like that where we're like, okay, we love this character and these films like but internally, like what are they doing for us aside from just providing much needed entertainment, right? Like if we look at each film, there's lessons that are being conveyed. There's themes, there's metaphors, right? Like I know when you said that the Showa films kind of like taught you to like keep going, you know, regardless of adversity, like I very much resonated with that with the Heisei era actually. Where like watching the films just like taught me the significance of not giving up when being confronted with so many difficult things that we navigate, as kids, as teenagers, even as adults, right? Are you by any chance a collector?
It's a tidbit.
So okay, so you've kind of teased us a little bit with the fact that you do collect. Talk to me a little bit about like how you got into collecting Godzilla stuff and how far has it gone? Like what do you love to collect specifically?
So I'll start from the very beginning. At first, it was VHS tapes, which for all the young folks out there, VHS tapes, yes, they do exist. I don't have a
What are
VCR no
those?
more, but they do exist, guys.
What are those? I can't remember. I'm kidding.
I know when I was a kid, I learned how to dub VHS tapes. So I would dub all the movies. Buy them at video stores for the library had to sell. I'll start with the VCR tapes. Then I got older. I was like, I might as well collect all the DVDs now. So then I collected all the DVDs. And one day a conversation I had with my parents was I was out and about in FYE and I got like Gojira, and my mom asked me like, hey, why are you buying stuff? This doesn't really mean anything. Like, why are you buying all this stuff? And one thing I'll never forget that my dad told me, if you're gonna spend money, at least know where your money's going. At least put it towards something that you absolutely love. And ever since then, I've always lived by that motto. So I ended up collecting all the all the DVDs and stuff. And then in 2017, I actually lost my dad at the beginning of the year, and from there, that's where I really really got back into Godzilla because I was able to go back to that comfort and have that comfort zone again. So that's when I started collecting some of the figures. I started with Bandai, the Bandai figures, NECA figures, things like that at first. And then I saw one of Rich Iso's videos and found my first X Plus figure. And that's when I found the X Plus group. And then the rabbit hole expanded and I fell and I'm still falling down that rabbit hole.
No. Oh my goodness. And thank you for sharing that tidbit about your dad. I'm sorry for that loss, by the way. But like it sounds like that message that he gave you about like really just investing in things you love, like just taught this lesson of like you only live life once, right? Like really, like if there's something you're passionate about, like allow yourself to be passionate about it, right? Whereas we have many other people in our lives who are always like why do you like that? Like why, like what are you doing, right? I know when I was like a kid and a teenager, like I would always have people being like, Donny, you're gonna grow out of Godzilla at some point. And here I am like in my mid-30s and I'm just like, well, I haven't yet. Like,
exactly.
Joke's on you. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, my friends used to do me like that too. And I mean, I'm in my early 30s and it's like, time's running out, guys.
Like, I'm gonna be like probably having my dying breath singing the Mothra song. I'm just gonna be like, Mothra, you know? So yeah, people can tell me forever that I'm not that I'm gonna grow out of it. I'm gonna be like, no.
Yeah, no, that's not happening.
So obviously the MonsterVerse, I would say, has over the recent years, like the MonsterVerse, Shin Godzilla, like newer adaptations of Godzilla have really drawn a lot of new Godzilla fans into the fan base, right? So do you have like any specific advice for aspiring Godzilla fans as they kind of immerse themselves more in our fandom?
Watch every single film at least once. At least once. If you don't like it, fine. Not every Godzilla is perfect. We know that. I can watch Godzilla all the time, every single film all the time. There's some I watch way more than others, but I can watch any Godzilla film whenever. But you should always give all the Godzilla movies a shot. Don't ever, even terrible, the terrible anime trilogy that I don't talk about much, but at least watch everything once. If you don't like it, cool, but at least give it a chance. Because what I have learned about Godzilla is the more you watch it, the more stuff you find, the more things you find to fall in love with it.
It's true. It really is true. Like I like my realization with Godzilla versus Megalon that child abuse is basically in it, and I didn't realize that before. But I agree with you. Like even like the ones that aren't really popular, like that the anime trilogy. I enjoy elements of it, but like it's not perfect. I think that fans owe themselves the justice of seeing just how versatile the character and the franchise has been over the past, you know,
68 years.
68 years.
60 years in November.
Oh my goodness, Godzilla's birthday is coming up.
Yep.
So I guess my question for you is, how do you plan on celebrating it?
I don't know yet. I'm actually my buddy Eric Stope actually brought that up to me the other day, and I was like, "Yeah, how are we going to celebrate Godzilla's birthday this year? It's going to be interesting."
So my final question for you, and this is going to lead into you eventually providing some plugs of your stuff. So you're very active, much like I am, as a Godzilla YouTuber. What drew you into doing YouTube and talking about this sort of content through that platform?
Well, to be completely honest, I have to give most of the credit to Leslie P. Chambers. Honestly, watching his videos really gave me the confidence that to think, you know what, he can do this. I have a voice. I can do this too, along with others like Rich Iso, Samson Rest, Bootzilla, Matt Jacobson. All those guys have big influences on me, and then as far as like photography and stuff like that, I have to give all that credit to John Ruffin and Derek and Eric Doppo, because because their photography really gave me hope and had, especially during COVID. When COVID started, I was barely starting doing toy photography and stuff, but looking at their stuff, they really up my game and get my photos to a level where people appreciate it the way that they appreciate theirs. Which, of course, I'm never done working for nothing that I'm doing, but I'm always trying to find ways to improve and make things better.
Right. And see, that's good. We always have inspirations, and really though, is it working for us when it's something that we're really passionate about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I know like I have people periodically ask me like, Donnie, why do you do like this show? Like it takes, you record, you edit, you did, that's a lot of work. And I'm just like, to me, it doesn't feel like work because it's like you get to share experiences with other people. You get to create something and collaborate. And I think that it's so wholesome being able to do that with other Godzilla fans. So, all right. Where can we find your stuff before we close out this episode?
So you can find me on YouTube on Godzilla Chain 1090, as well as Monsters of Attitude on YouTube. On my Instagram, same handle, Godzilla Chain 1090, and on Facebook, y'all can join the Facebook group Kaiju Collectors as well.
Woohoo! So I will have all of those links down in the description section of this video, everyone. Thank you, Adrian, for joining us. Like, again, I love having conversations with you, and I hope that you will definitely consider coming back in the future. You're always welcome.
Oh, most definitely, Donny. Just say the word. I'm there.
I'm going to get out my pom-poms. Woo! All right, everyone. You all have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye, Kaiju family.